Well, this morning we were talking, amongst many other things, about how in the quest to go net zero, digitalisation is playing a part. And there's different views on whether it's enabling or whether it's changing, or which comes first, the horse or the cart, to use a very analog analogy. We're going to develop that discussion just a little bit further now for the next few minutes under the headline of Digitalisation Transforming the Construction Industry. And I'm absolutely delighted yet again to welcome, well, I was about to say another 5 guests, but actually another 4, because one of them has very kindly agreed to put in a second bite of the cherry. So first of all, allow me to introduce Josh Wallman, the director of Capja. Josh, oh, there you are. Josh, if I could possibly ask you just to go down 1 or 2 or as many as you like. Yep, absolutely. Chris Gill, Lynch Plant Hire. Where are you, Chris? If you'd like to go the other side of Josh, that would be brilliant. Vanessa Bold, who is new to us, but she is in charge of the unbelievably huge and unbelievably ambitious NHS hospitals programme. We'll be talking to you about that in just a moment, Vanessa. Steve Bradby, by popular demand, back for another go. Which leaves only James O'Meara from JCV. Very welcome, James.
Might need to, but I'll find my own seat.
Can you all fit in?
Come on.
Oh, well done. Okay. Well, because you're 5 instead of the 3 that we had previously, and because not all of you are known to all the audience, I will just ask you to introduce yourselves with a sort of reference, really, to the digitalisation transforming the construction industry, although I'm pretty certain Vanessa's going to say it's rather more than transforming. Vanessa, take it away.
Thank you, Merryn. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm absolutely delighted to be here. My name's Vanessa Bold. I don't actually head up the whole of the new hospital programme, which is quite a stretch. But
Journalistic licence.
It's future ambition. But I do actually head up the supply market management function of the new hospital programme. So my role is very much about understanding the potential marketplace and talking about the new hospital programme to the markets to enable organisations like yourselves to understand who we are, what we're buying, when we're buying, how we're buying it, so that in the future, when we have a pipeline of opportunities, that you're primed and ready to deliver them and you want to be part of our supply chain. So I'm here today, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the new hospital programme. For those that are not aware of it, or those that haven't heard about it before, it's a really ambitious scheme to build new critical infrastructure. I work for the client organisation, which is part NHS E&I, new NHS estates and improvements, alongside with the Department of Health and Social Care. So we're quite an interesting client because we're a hybrid of 2 government organisations. Essentially, we've got 40 new hospitals to build within the next decade, and an additional 8 schemes that we've inherited that are in flight at the moment that we're going to take over the line. So it's a really ambitious programme. We have around about £3.7 billion to spend between now and 2025, so our first funding envelope. In delivery, we'll be collaborating really closely with our hospital trusts, because the new hospital programme will be delivered in quite a different way to what one would expect 48 traditional hospitals to be delivered. So instead of 48 individual trusts building the schemes in isolation, actually our programme will be coordinated from this central function, this central combined organisation. And we're looking to learn from best practice within healthcare, and we're also looking to learn from outside of healthcare to really bring innovation, collaboration, as Brian mentioned. I can't see Brian. We want to collaborate with industry to really get the innovation and the supply chains that we need to deliver against this ambitious programme. So our funding is predicated on 3 really important principles. And that's centred around digitalisation, which is what we're going to be discussing today. So thinking about how a centre-driven digital design can help unlock common commodities and components So we'll be looking at bringing modern methods of construction together with innovation and buying these schemes in a much more progressive and dynamic way to traditional schemes. So we'll be looking for things like platform and kits of parts approach. So digital should unlock a lot of that innovation and a lot of that dynamism and change. And our funding is also predicated on a really dynamic ambition around net carbon zero. So the two themes that I know are really key to today's session really comes to life on the new hospital programme. As I mentioned, my team are very much around engaging the market, and we're in place a lot sooner. We want to engage the market a lot sooner than other major programmes because we want to learn about best practice and what you can bring to help us build that into our commercial approach from the outset. We want to get it right from the start. So our commercial approach is very much predicated on what we'll reference the construction playbook. So for those that haven't looked at construction playbook, I recommend that you have a read of that, and we'll talk about more of that as we go through the conversation. But thank you.
Lovely. Thank you very much indeed, Vanessa. And so thanks to the CPA, all these people here are kind of in at the beginning of what could be an enormous set of tendering processes. You met her here first, remember. Josh, tell us about yourself and also about Capja.
Yes, hello, thank you. I'm Josh Wallman, co-founder of Capja. So we specialise in digitalising companies and helping them move forward and taking away that, not just the paper process, but making it more automated, more streamlined and easier. And something that we focus quite heavily within the plant hire industry is user adoption and making things as simple as possible for operators, engineers, people on the ground, basically. And where we work is usually digitising different types of forms like timesheets, check sheets, like F91 forms and so forth, and making them clever, making them work, and taking the administration out of that kind of where the heavy lifting would be on that.
Yeah. So although we'll discuss it later, are you, in a way, you and companies like yours, a bridge between the hesitant, sceptical or fearful customers and the new net zero digital future? You can facilitate that, am I right?
Yes, I think so. I think there's always, there's always little steps to that big future.
Yeah.
And the future is pretty much imminent in terms of what we need to do and how we need to action things now. And so it's seeing the bigger picture and starting off small and putting in those small steps to start on the journey, really.
Well, thank you very much. We'll talk to you again in a moment. James, thank you so much for joining us. First time,
No
I
problem.
believe. Am I
Yeah,
right?
yes, it is.
Please
First
tell us
panel
about
discussion.
yourself.
Please go easy on me. So I'm James O'Mara. I am the global manager for LiveLink in JCB, which encompasses everything from telematics to machine control, diagnostic tools. And the way I tend to sum it up is everything that you need after the point of buying a JCB, we try and provide that as a digital concierge service. So whether you run mixed fleets or just JCB, we're driven exclusively by what the market is telling us their problems are, and we try and do what we can, as JCB always does, to find a solution to that. So for us, digitalization is incredibly important. It has weekly focus with both the family and the senior exec within JCB, which is a double-edged sword because you can't hide if you don't get things right. But for us, it's about, we've always made tools to help people do their job, whether it's a trailer, a backhoe, an excavator. And for us, LiveLink and digitalization is just a new tool. It's a new way that we're going to help our customers to do their jobs profitably, sustainably, and everything that goes with that. So it's very difficult to distill exactly what we do, but we do a lot of things.
I love the phrase a digital concierge service. Is that a very fancy way of describing customer service?
Essentially, yes. And, we're not there yet, but that's where our vision is, that when people are at 11 o'clock at night looking for something to buy, everybody takes their phone out of their pocket and looks on Amazon. And really, as a manufacturer, we need to be able to provide information or online part sales really easily to our customers to help them to do their job. And I would love to get to a point where when you've got a problem in your fleet, the first thing in your mind is, well, I'm going to go and check my LiveLink app because there'll probably be an answer there.
Brilliant.
That's where we see digitalisation helping.
Look forward to drawing some more of that out, I think. Chris, welcome.
Hello. Hi, afternoon everybody. I'm Chris Gill. I'm a director at Lynch Plant Hire and Haulage. I'm probably from a unique perspective that my father was an owner-operator. So I grew up sitting on his toolbox on a weekend of his 3CX when he was out to work. So I look after a lot of our customer relationships with tier ones such as Balfour Beatty and Skanska. And I also got the task of procuring our plant. So as kind of touched upon in the earlier conversation, it's always a very busy role because we've always got something coming in. So looking at adopting new technologies, but then finding the simpler things that are available on the market to give our customers a better experience.
Okay. And Steve, do you want to say a word, or do you feel we all know everything there is to know about you?
Yeah, good point. No, I will.
Good.
So, you know, as engineering leader for Select, part of my role is actually working with the manufacturers and the suppliers to try and push them to sort of fulfil our requirements, which we harvest from customers, if you like. And obviously there's the Lang O'Rourke, which Lang O'Rourke actually, despite it being a particularly large company, isn't our biggest customer, strangely, despite owning us.
Yeah.
But when you look at digitisation, and Lang O'Rourke have actually been on quite a big journey with that, having the most advanced concrete factory in Europe, based up in Worksop, where we're effectively pre-building buildings, component form. So Lego forms of a better description, where we can send semi-finished products to site, and NHS has benefited from that on some of the more recent hospitals done. We even managed to deliver one slightly early in order to open a COVID ward.
Wow.
Actually, it was very early. I think it's 12 months early in the end. And that was because of the benefits of being able to use planned, proper product that's ready to be used on site immediately.
We'll go into the detail of what all four of you have said, but I would love to start with Vanessa, because if I've understood you rightly, Vanessa, because you and I had a chat on the phone last week, didn't we? You were saying that you're actually almost a step before what we're discussing. You were more or less saying to me, if I understood you correctly, that your program would not be possible without digitalisation, or rather under the budgetary and the time pressures that it has, it would not be possible. If I've got that right, tell us more about it.
That's absolutely right. We have a very small public funded envelope and a very short time frame in which to deliver these schemes, and not all schemes are the same. There's a mixture of new builds, refurbishments, in community care. So there's a whole list of different components that need to go into our hospital programme, and without taking that digital design lens and looking for implementing the common components and commodities view, standardisation, productisation, we absolutely wouldn't be able to meet our ambitious targets. And so we've actually got quite an interesting challenge, because where we need to get to needs to be paved with organisations that are on that journey too. And so we've got quite a bit of work to do over the next few months to communicate that to the market and to understand where digital technologies and innovations exist, and to help us coordinate that central design and look for those areas of commonality and standardisation in order that we can have a productionised approach, which will ultimately get us to where we need to be. But also thinking about the future asset of what we're building hospitals for future generations. And so we need to be absolutely bought in and understanding from the outset what technology, what digital advancements exist now, what will exist in 10 years, and how can we plan those future assets for technologies that don't exist today. So we're building all of that into the blueprint of these new, amazing new public critical infrastructures, so that we're building facilities that are not obsolete and need to be reconfigured, after a short period of time, but actually last for future generations. So we've got quite an interesting challenge in so many different ways. So the design, the construction, and the ultimate delivery and maintenance of these programs all have a really challenging digital asset to them, digital challenge.
So it sounds as if you're operating in the area of we don't know what we don't know, and you're still having to plan.
Absolutely, and that that is my request to market. Help us understand the questions, and then work with us to work out the solutions.
I don't want to put you on the spot, but have you got either a couple of examples or a couple of illustrations of how your reliance on digital has saved some time on the timetable and saved some money on the budget?
Well, we've only just started out, actually, Merryn. We've only been, as a programme, up and running. Well, we've been up and running for under a year. So we're actually at the moment pulling together the client team and working out what our commercial strategy looks like and what our delivery model looks like. And so far in developing our commercial strategy, we've taken parts of that and tested that on the market and had the market help feed into that. And actually Fergus was part of some of the work that we've done around MEP. So we recognise that the market is not big enough for what we need in the future, and we recognise that there are challenges around growth for lots of UK-based organisations. And so we want to know as a client what we can do to unlock some of that growth, so organisations can invest in the technology that they need in order to meet our ambitious timeframe. So there's a lot of iterative work that's happening at the moment to help pave that path and really set that commercial strategy, so that when we do go to market, next year, the year after, that those technologies, that understanding is in place, and we can buy it, implement it, and deliver it.
Thank you for that, for the time being. Josh, you're very much active, as it were. You're not right at the beginning, as Vanessa is. So from your perspective, how do you think digitalisation is transforming the construction industry, and critically, how it should be transforming?
I think that where we're sort of coming to, there's a lot of the larger companies are kind of paving the way in terms of experimenting, trying new technologies, and where you've got a lot of the mass market sort of trying to keep up in a way. I think where we're getting to, or where we are at the moment, people are opening up a little bit more. They're adopting it a little bit more. I think lockdown has kind of helped in a way push us towards that acceptance of digital technology and how it can work for us and as a business. I think the challenge is the technology is moving so quickly. So to try and plan and map is something that's such a big task, because in a year's time, something greater, quicker, smarter, faster is going to be there and available on the market. And it's kind of having that adaptability to be able to cater for those different scenarios and what could be that eventuality.
That's a real challenge, specifically for people attending this conference who are, maybe have their own SMEs or work for SMEs. How can you possibly begin to put into place the steps we discussed this morning if you don't even know if it's going to be obsolete by next Wednesday?
Yeah, so you've got to start somewhere, and with any kind of digital plan and moving forward, it's all about trying to get as much structured data into that process, and as if you can map out and understand the eventualities of what can happen, then you can start putting in tools in place to get to that. So where we focus on as a business is trying to capture data right from the start of a process, because if you're digitizing and starting that process in a digital fashion right from the start, then even if new technology is coming in for the rest of the process, and even if it is starting to be manual, but you're putting in automated controls, it's going to be easier to manage and manipulate it as things come in.
Okay, we'll definitely dive into that a little bit further if we have time. James, how is digital transforming, and how should digital be transforming the construction industry?
I think I'll come back to what our thinking is, which is you've got to think of it like a tool in your toolbox. It's not a vision. It's not an end goal. The end goal should never be to put as much technology in as possible. The end goal should be, I've got a job that I've got to do a little bit faster or a bit more efficiently. I think one of the major challenges we have within the industry is the skilled operator shortage, which is coming and it's hitting us. And the truck drivers are getting all the press at the moment, but I've no doubt that it's going to significantly affect our industry. And digitization is a way for us to address those risks. And again, like the truck drivers, if we wait until the shortage is there, it's going to be too little too late. So it's about what Chris mentioned earlier on, using the data to loop back and do your training over and over again. It's about what Merrill and the Lynch team have presented already. It's about thinking about, we need to get to a place where all of our operators have been trained. Digitization is not going to fix everything, but it's definitely a tool in the toolbox, and we should consider it that way.
So it's not the end, it's the means.
Yeah.
I'm interested what you say about the skill shortage, though, because surely the other side of the coin is that you are, or companies are going to have to use that horrible phrase, upskill people, or a whole tranche of unskilled people, which traditionally has been the base of a lot of this industry, are just going to be off on the scrap heap, aren't they?
I think it's everywhere you look at technology, the same thing comes up. The initial feeling is, my job is going to be gone as a result of this technology. Well, the reality is there's not enough people to do the jobs. And if we want to grow, and if we want to build back better, if we want to deliver our hospitals, there is not enough people to do it. The only thing that's going to help us do it is to make the people who are there more effective. And I think, you know, I don't want to get into it too much, but I think there's an image thing that we need to address as well. People are looking at our industry and agriculture and many others and saying, that's not somewhere I want to be. I want to go and work for TikTok in London, you know. And actually, when you get into some of the 3D grade control and the things that a lot of people in this room are already running, that's quite tech savvy. And if you're into your PlayStation games and you're into your technology, you can get a lot of satisfaction from getting the most out of a piece of technologically advanced kit. So I think there's opportunities for us to attract a different type of talent because we're bringing technology to the industry.
And as a complete aside, maybe we could take a leaf out of Jeremy Clarkson's book. Look what he's done for agriculture. Maybe we need the same sort of thing for...
I do shudder when he can't use the drill properly. And you look at it as somebody who works in machine control and technology, and you just watch him make an absolute mess of it, knowing that a small investment could have done a lot, could have saved him a whole field. But,
there speaks a plant hire and construction man.
Yeah.
Chris, I believe your company, well, in fact, I know your company, were very much early adopters. Tell us a bit about that and how it's transforming what you do and what any of us can learn from that.
Yeah, I think when you're looking at digital, it's a big place to start. And James kind of said, it's a bit daunting looking at digital. So you've got to look at how you want to improve your business and then potentially look at what is available to improve the business. So we looked probably 6 or 7 years ago at paper. We were getting all these requests from customers asking for copies of timesheets or copies of PODs, POCs, and we would literally have to go into a ring binder folder and page by page by page look, and you'd realise that the driver didn't fill the form in, or the wrong collection note had been stapled to the contract. That's where we were, 6, 7 years ago. So we tried to, we didn't try, we succeeded in delivering our PDA system. So all of our lorry drivers work off a PDA. Now, that is, we get stuff delivered to our houses daily. You've got a wife like mine, and you kind of take it for granted that you don't squiggle or somebody takes a photo, but there's still companies delivering plant equipment, and they're using the old 3 pieces of paper, one for the driver, one for the site, one for the office. So we looked at kind of remarkably simple wins that were very difficult to implement, but that kind of way, if a customer's now asking for a collection note, we default it. The minute it's signed for on site, it goes straight to the customer via an email. It doesn't come back to the office, get scanned, get sent in. So people are getting that data as quick as they want. So that improves our customer relationship because we're making them quicker and more efficient at what they do. So it sounds so simple, but I know when we started doing it 6 or 7 years ago, and I was a transport manager back at the time, and I remember explaining to our transport drivers delivering machinery that we're going to have PDAs, and they just looked at me like we had 5 heads. And now if we give them a notepad, as the backup, if the system ever went down, you've got your notepad in. They just went, well, we'll never need that because the system doesn't go down. So yeah, we've tried. That's just a small kind of way that we've used digital to kind of improve our customers' experience, but then quicken us up. And then the byproduct is obviously the amount of paper we're not printing in the first place. There's a lot of wins from such a small thing to concentrate on.
And it's interesting because the theme is definitely bubbling up during the day of baby steps.
Yeah.
Baby step, this is an evolution, even though we're being told it should be a revolution and we should damn well get on with it. Maybe in the real world it is evolutionary.
Yeah, I think definitely Merryn and Chris touched upon, and Steve there. There's a lot of easy wins or low hanging fruit that you can adopt quite quickly, and I think that's kind of a cry to the industry that you can do that whatever size you are. You don't have to work for one of the bigger plant hire companies. I think if I was to set up tomorrow, I'd invest some money in like customer experience and how you get a simple thing of a POD or a POC, which in principle gets you actually paid quicker because the customer needs proof of the item being on site or the proof of it being collected. So yeah.
Steve, how is Select transforming either its own business or the industry?
Lots of different ways. I mean, I suppose, you know, the use of the word BIM has been floating around for a long time, and we've obviously, as doing tower crane schemes for some of the bigger contractors, they're starting to do that. But what fascinated me is I actually found it was more the tier 2s that had actually developed it first, and the tier 1s tended to find that they couldn't find a computer powerful enough to actually do a large model. One of the projects we actually had a fair bit of involvement in doing some really sort of pre-construction modelling on was actually for Steve Murphy's job at Lend-Lease at Google, where we actually modelled the crane scheme in virtual reality, so in Oculus, and we're able to actually, effectively, you could fly around the cranes as the building went up. You could even stand in the tracks at King's Cross and actually look up at the cranes. And that was used, the building itself is literally next to King's Cross. So there was a real concern around doing any interruption to the main line. I can't remember what the charge is, but it's like hundreds of thousands of pounds an hour if you stop the tracks. So there was actually a piece where they were actually using that to actually talk to Network Rail and explain how the building was going to be built, so they could try and pacify them and help them understand the process. And it's fascinating to be involved in that. It's amazing. And it was quite a revolutionary piece of kit. But it also actually led quite nicely into being used for operator familiarisation. So they're able to actually, show it to a banksman and say that's what what the crane driver can see. And also with the crane drivers actually show them what the other crane drivers can see compared to him without them having to go climbing up cranes. And then the next iteration of that was to actually use it for training. So we actually developed a course for an enhanced course for slinger signallers, and as part of that course we let one slinger signaller give instruction to another one who's driving a virtual crane. And you couldn't safely do that anywhere else. But you could actually, they actually got to see what the person they're instructing gets to see, which is, a real benefit.
I would just like to take the tiniest detour based on what you've just said. I promise I will come back to it. But since the whole digital thing is cool as far as the young are concerned, I personally find it funky and fascinating, and I'm not particularly technical. It's fun, it's modern, it's all those things. So why is the industry not attracting all the youngsters into it? It should be an absolute shoo-in. I mean, anyone can answer this.
It is in places. You go to some of the larger companies, and they've got massive teams of, we call them digital engineers now, who are, modelling, working on tenders so we can actually model the final building. And you've seen the quality of some of the pictures you now see of what the building's going to look like. It's hard to believe it's not actually there. So, yeah, I think there are certainly roles in construction that are attracting young people, but it's not necessarily the dirty ones.
I was thinking even of possibly younger, the kind of 11, 12-year-olds in school.
Yeah, I mean,
if they're into TikTok and playing games, why wouldn't they be beating down your door to get into this industry?
I mean, Minecraft is just construction, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think we've got to do more short-term with secondary school boys and girls, and kind of say, look, these are the options in construction, and you say, like, it's not necessarily the muddy shoe. They think, I'm going to work in construction, I'm going to be on site. There's a lot of roles. I think we are getting very good at the side of it with office space, we're still not attracting near enough people with the muddy shoes kind of side where I am most of the time. I think we've got to start going to schools, showing them the benefits, showing them what a great industry it is, how it's diversifying, like the strides it's made in the last few years, and kind of show no matter what's happening, the construction industry normally does well. If you look at last year, we held our own as an industry versus a lot of others, and we probably attracted a lot of people in short term, and we've probably held on to them, which is great. But start with the secondary school children, and then go down to the kind of the primary school children. I've got 2 young daughters in primary school, and it's definitely not in their radar to go and work in construction or certainly plant hire.
Is one of the flip sides of the drive for digitalisation the fact that the unskilled dirty boots, if you want to call them that, are going to be squeezed out?
Look,
I don't think so.
I don't. No? I think we made a good comment about younger people getting technology, but we've seen how plant simulators and technology can really aid red card operators get valuable hours and valuable practice and valuable skills, and even hone their skills. I can drive machines, but you give me a machine with machine control and I can really drive machines. Now that's adding to their skill set. So the adoption of that should be, we should push on, and once people break the stigma of what's that screen, what's the plus and the minus, what's that, they're worried by it. The minute you've got that and you explain it to them, a couple of weeks later, whether they're 70-year-olds or they're 18, 19-year-old apprentices, the 80, 90% of it absolutely love it. It guides them and it helps them become better at their job.
I think in reality, a lot of the dirty, horrid jobs of the past are actually going.
Yeah.
Because we can use new kit, robotics, you name it, but also, you know, the way digitalisation enables you to actually plan a building to the nth degree. So rather than having to, you know, suddenly all of a sudden having to dig a hole somewhere, you know, you should plan that out. It's the detail and the key to safe construction and fast construction is in the plan.
Vanessa?
I absolutely agree. I think it's a really exciting time. And I think the emergence of modern methods of construction off-site brings with it such brilliant opportunities for young people to enter this sector and get really excited about it. And as you said, by removing some of that dirty work, some of the jobs that have got health and safety implications, you know, that by taking some of that away, it should, if it's marketed in the right way, attract, you know, lots of young, dynamic, digitally enabled folk that will then bring, hopefully, with them that innovation and different perspectives to help take us up to that next level and that next level. And I think it's a great opportunity for women to get involved. I'm excited to see lots of women here today, but I'd like to see more. And I think these new skills that are becoming more prevalent in our sector should pave that way all the way through wherever you sit, you know, in the supply chain. There should be those opportunities coming through. So I think the digital age, as we're stepping into, perhaps evolving into, brings with it lots of positivity and lots of change, and should galvanise and refresh traditional skills.
And excite us.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'd like to pick up something that I think it was Fergus, I think you said before lunch, when you were talking about the huge volume of contracts that flow from government. It made me wonder over lunch how, and the kind of caveats that go with it. It has to be socially purposive, it has to have a certain environmental levels and so on and so forth. How much of this, given that it's a huge volume, and I'm looking at you here, Vanessa, as well, is how much is our government contracts driving the change to digitalisation, do you think? Generally.
Well, you know, from a new hospital programme perspective, we're a huge client organisation. We've got the ability to set a commercial strategy that enables digitalisation and enables growth. And so from that perspective, we've got lots more freedoms in that sense. And hopefully we will leave a legacy of digital design, digitally led construction, digitally managed hospitals that other clients can follow. And we, you know, I guess we're probably going to make some mistakes along the way. We're probably not going to get things right, but the legacy of learning from what we've done should hopefully set a precedent for others to follow. And as a government-funded organisation, we have a responsibility around social value, and that covers environment, it covers skills and employment, and along with a load of other benefit outcomes that we need to achieve. And so we have that responsibility. So it'll be. I'm excited by by where we are being at the very first step in a huge programme, and I'm excited to see what we'll leave behind and how, as a result of what how we're ploughing the furrow, that others will feel empowered to follow in the same lights.
James, working in JCB, how much of the work that JCB does is encouraged, given impetus by the public sector, but specifically by government contracts?
I think for us, we obviously have close links with the government. We have a Tory peer who runs the company.
Whoops.
Well, it's the truth. So, we all the while will always look at what governments are requiring from their projects. And within every problem, there's always an opportunity. And for us, we try to look for our opportunity to help the customer do the job better. So if the government is demanding that there's got to be a more sustainable solution, then we look at, well, what's our part to play in that? And specifically within the LiveLink team, we'll say, well, people want to know the facts of what's on the ground. They don't want to say, well, I think I've burned so many litres of fuel. We want to tell them exactly how many litres of fuel they've burned. So we would look at those frameworks. We look at things like the construction playbook. We look at the things that come out in the tenders for HS2, and we look at them specifically and say, well, we're not going to do everything. Where's our core competency, and how can we address one of the parts of this? And we focus on that.
Yeah.
We're not, we are a big company in the UK. We're not a terribly big company in terms of global construction. There are competitors much bigger than us. So we pick our battles and we see what can we have an impact in, what aligns with our goals, with our ethics. The chairman is very, very driven on sustainability. George and Joe, his children, and Alice, they're all very driven around digitization and customer experience. George's business was about personalization of watches, and he's bringing that type of one-on-one customer experience on a large scale. That's what we're driving for. So the government has a part to play, but ultimately, the government is never going to award us business. It's our customers who say, yes, your product is the right product. And so it's them that we listen to.
Yeah, thank you for that. We're drawing slowly to a close, but I just wonder if anyone has got any questions for any of our panellists. Gentleman at the back. Who's that? Is that David? Yes, it is.
I changed school. I was prompted to comment, actually, by Vanessa's description of her job role and her ambitions for the team into the future. It reminds me of a few years ago, I was retained by Carillion as their BIM consultant on the Midland Metropolitan Hospital, and this was a £300 million hospital project, which Carillion wanted to be an exemplar BIM project. Crucially, their contract was not only to design and build the hospital, but it was to operate it as well for 30 years. And they saw the value of obtaining good digital data at the very outset, which could then be used through design, procurement, delivery, and crucially operation. It was my job to try to explain to Black Country businesses what digital data looked like. My point is that for them, there was a clear value in having digital data throughout the whole project. And crucially, the value was not only to them, but it was to their end users and their end suppliers. And my comment would be that if you're considering digital innovation in your business, try and understand and articulate the value of what that information might be to you, not only in terms of possessing data, but being able to analyze it, to simulate scenarios, etc. But also understand what value that might be to your customer and to your supply chain. And I think if you've got a clear value of that data, it'll make the investment very much more easy for you.
Josh, does that chime a bell with you? I would have thought in your line of country very much so.
Yeah, I think it's once you've got the data sort of available and people are utilising it and using it and adopting it, then there are so many, and again, everyone's going to take that differently in regards to what their 5-year, 10-year vision is as a company or even a project point of view. And so it's constantly reviewing that data and trying to get that instant feedback as much as you can. So once you get to that level, then it's great. You can constantly keep on reviewing, keep on perfecting. Then all of a sudden you're getting to the point where you can bring in more people for different areas because you're bringing on more work because you have the capacity, etc., etc.
Thank you. Does anyone else want to help Pete with his 10,000 steps and the microphone? Any further questions? No, I think you've told them everything they need to know. Well, this is amazing. Well, needless to say, of course, our guests will be hanging around for longer or shorter periods, so you're very, very welcome to go and have a word with them. We're just going to take a 5-minute, no more, comfort break for anyone who wants to go to the loo or have a quick fag or whatever, while we mic up our next guests. But for the time being, I would very much like your thanks to Vanessa and to Josh and to James and to Chris and to Steve.